Hello YouTube, Dave here again. So this is part 3 of my video archive chronicling my RPG collection. So to date I have listed off my Starfinder products, although that list has been updated since. The Dragon Age RPG, and today I'm going to be looking at another one of my much smaller collections. And this is going to be my Pathfinder collection. So just a little bit of history before I get into the actual video itself to explain why there's really not much here. So I never really got into Pathfinder as a game master. I was running 3.5 Dungeons & Dragons and going back as an extension back to 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons from the time that it first came out until about the year 2012. I think it was early 2012, in which I continued to run 3.5 and 3rd edition D&D. So that was a period of about 12 years. The last 3 years of that time I spent running the Shackled City campaign path put out by Paizo, as well as the Age of Worms adventure path, those were both done through Dungeon Magazine. And by the time I stopped running 3rd edition or 3.5 D&D, I was really burnt out on the system. I was tired of prestige classes. I was tired of the feat trees and how you had to have like 6 useless feats to get like the one that you wanted, and that number is inflated before people correct me. But there were situations where, like, to get the whirlwind attack feat, you had to have, I think it was like 4 or 5 other feats, most of which you were probably never going to use. So when Pathfinder came out, I heard a lot of good things about it, and I don't want to say anything bad about the system itself. The only issue is that it's based off of the 3.5 open gaming license, and some of the more frustrating aspects that I had in terms of my viewpoint on 3.5, having run it between that and 3.0, having run those games for 12 years, those aspects were still in Pathfinder. So I didn't want to run it. That said, I had a friend who did want to run it, so I went out and I did get some stuff for it, and I kind of wish there were other things that I would have gone back and picked up, like the flip mats, for example. If you watch any of my Starfinder ones, you know how much I love the flip mats, and I still plan on going back and getting some of the Pathfinder ones, because I think that they are super useful, and I prefer those to other similar products put out by other companies. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and show the collection off. So I actually at one point used to have one more book, actually, but I ended up trading that in because I just wasn't going to use it. But the first thing we have here is the Pathfinder core rulebook. So like I said, I bought this because I was going to be a player. I did not buy and I do not own any of the bestiaries. The only other book that I had bought years ago was the Advanced Player's Guide, but I no longer have that. I traded that in for store credit because I was not going to use it, and it was just kind of taking up space. And I figured it would be better, if that book went into someone's actual collection who would appreciate and use it. And the store that I traded it to had it only on their shelf for like 2 days, and then it was gone. So it definitely went to hopefully to a good home, sort of thing. But I have the core rulebook here. And the core rulebook is something that I actually really love. And this is one of the positives that I can definitely say about Paizo. This book is a player's handbook and a game master's guide combined into one. So it's one of those things that it's a little bit more expensive than buying one of the individual books on their own, but it is a great value, and this is a good book. I mean, even though there are parts of the Pathfinder system that I'm not a big fan of, like damage reduction based off of weapon properties like they had in 3.5, and spell resistance, they did actually handle it better in this book than they did in others. So like certain magical pluses, for example, would overcome the need for a particular property on your sword, like being it silver or adamantine or Cold Iron. So they did make a lot of positive changes. It's just I got completely burned out on the 3.5 style of Dungeons and Dragons, and I didn't want to run it. I did not want to go back and run that system again, even if it was done better by Pathfinder. So nothing against Pathfinder. I know some people in the past have thought that I didn't like the system. I have nothing against it. It's just it's based off of a version of a game that I ran to death, and I just don't want to touch. But still glad that I have the core rulebook, and I might consider trying to get at least the first bestiary, just to have that sort of collection of the core books at some point, but we'll see how that goes. They have put out pocket editions for those as well, which are just like smaller paperback books, so that might be something to look into as well. So anyway, so there we go. So that is the core rulebook for first edition Pathfinder. And just to show, like, I think this was pretty early printing. 2009. So okay, yeah. So the Pathfinder core rulebook came out in 2009. So this was the fourth printing, but this fourth printing came out in September of 2010, and that's pretty much. I think I actually bought this around that time. I bought it I bought it a couple years before I ended up actually running it, because I was gonna take some ideas out of it, I believe, for my last 3.5 campaign. So anyway, so that's that there. The only other product that I have for the original version of Pathfinder is this box of Pathfinder Pawns. This is the NPC Codex box, and the Pathfinder Pawns and the Starfinder Pawns I think are absolutely fantastic products. I know this isn't supposed to be a review, and I've sort of talked about these in the past, and I know some people that aren't as big on them, because really what they are, I took the bases out for a Starfinder game that I ran. I need to put those back in there. But basically what these are they're just two-dimensional cardboard stand-ups. You have a base with a slot that you can sort of insert the miniature into, and you can use it in place of having metal or plastic minis. And the price is one of the best things about these. And I've had people ask where they can go to get minis, or how they can build up their miniature collection. And basically, I always say that if you're on a budget, or if you're first starting and you just want to build up a solid base of things that you can use, then these Pathfinder Pawns are the way to go. For example, here you get, how many? You get 300, almost 350 creatures or NPCs, and these are NPCs, so they had ones for the bestiaries and stuff too. But you get like 350 or near 350 of these tokens that you can use for $40. And that's, to me, that's really good value. For that kind of, to try to get that many plastic miniatures would cost you hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So anyway, this is a really good product, and I wish I had more of these. I really do. So we got those there as well. And the only other things that I actually have in my Pathfinder collection are the playtest materials for the second edition of Pathfinder. So we have the Pathfinder playtest flip mat, and so this elastic was, it came bundled in with the things. I just kind of wanted it to be able to hold the cover on when I go to use these sort of things. But it's two double-sided battle maps. And again, I've already talked about how much I love these things, and I just want to go back and get some of the basic ones, like the battlefields and things like that, because there's just some gorgeous maps that they have here, and the ones that are included in here are also all fantastic. Just really, really great stuff. So I picked this up, obviously, because I wanted to. Not only do I love these flip mats, but I wanted to pick this up because they're limited production run. Like, they did a single printing, and while distributors did the smart thing and seem to have gotten tons of them printed, the fact of the matter is that there's never going to be a second printing. So these maps may not ever be reproduced, so I wanted to have them in my collection. I also have, of course, the Pathfinder playtest core rulebook. and this is the soft covered version. I was buying these all at the same time, so the soft cover version was basically the most affordable. I might, if I get the opportunity, I might try to pick up. Excuse me. I'm still dealing with throat issues from Halcon, but I might try to pick up a hardcover just to have, if I can find one when I have the funds available. But right now, I've got the soft cover here, and the rules have gone through quite a few changes. I think they're on like version 1.5 for the updates. So there's been 5 different updates that have come out since this. But I still really like this system. I like the base system quite a bit. I've only got a chance to run it a couple of times, and but I still really like the system. And I'm very much looking forward to the official release of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And it's something that I'm definitely going to follow a lot more closely. And I'm going to get at least the first run of things to come out, like the core rulebook, the bestiary, and at the very least try to pick up the very first adventure path that they do, and we'll kind of see from there. But the way things are going, I see myself wanting to get more and more into the 2nd edition of Pathfinder. So anyway, so that's the core rulebook there, and of course the last thing that we have was the final product to come out for the playtest itself, and that is the Doomsday Dawn adventure book. So at this point, at first I wanted to try to keep up with the playtest surveys. I really did. The problem is that each adventure only gave you 2 weeks to run it. And that's kind of difficult when, you know, you have a family, and it's like, you know, I could spend every single weekend for the next, you know, for 2.5 months running Pathfinder, but even my regular role-playing games, most of them are only once a month. You know, the most active one that I have, or the group that meets the most frequently, is every 2 weeks, and it's been almost a month since the last time we got together. So, yeah, I just wasn't able to keep up with it, but I still want to run the adventures and see what I can do sort of with that, because the adventures themselves do seem pretty cool. The ones that I did run, I actually, you know, really liked, so it'd be nice to be able to go through and finish these all off. But that's obviously something that's going to be something that I'll do down the road. But there you go. And that's really it, unfortunately. That is the extent of my Pathfinder collection. Like I said, the only other thing that I ever had was the Pathfinder Advanced Player's Guide for first edition Pathfinder, and that was it. Like, that was the only other thing that I ever had, and I ended up trading that away because, again, it was just sort of sitting on the shelf, taking up space, and was something that I was just never going to use. Even if I referenced the original Pathfinder rulebook, I wasn't going to be referencing that one, or I wasn't going to be getting any use out of it, and I felt that it should go to a home that was going to treat it better than what I could. So anyway, that is my Pathfinder collection. I hope you guys have been enjoying this series so far. I will be getting into my other collections here shortly, including the Dungeons & Dragons collections, but I want to sort of save those for last and get the smaller collections out of the way first. So there's not a whole lot left for me to have to go over, actually. So be sure to come back next week, and I'm going to go over some of my, I'm going to sort of rapid fire some of my smaller collections. So we'll be looking at some interesting things. I'm not going to spoil it here. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you've enjoyed the series so far. And as always, I'll see you next time. Take care.